I guess for me, one of the most exciting things about the work I've been involved in for now 31 years is the fact that nobody had ever depicted in sculpture northeastern Indians in bronze, and nobody had ever really combined the historical information that I include with each piece as well. So for me, that's a really important part of it. So by adding the story with the sculpture, it gives a whole nother dimension that the sculpture by itself wouldn't convey. Because for me, the history and the sculpture, it's obviously integral. It's impossible to separate the two. So the historical research and the sculpting go hand in hand. And it's been quite literally like discovering a whole forgotten world, and been very, very rewarding. I feel very honored to be doing it. And the goal, of course, beyond bringing them to life, is to remind people today of this very, very fascinating culture and the fact that their ancestors, or their descendants rather, are still here. The majority of my time is spent involved in the historical research, and it turns out the resource material that's the foundation for all the sculpture that relates to northeastern Indians is literally inexhaustible. It dwarfs anything about the West. From the resource material, directly or indirectly, come the ideas for the sculptures. So this clay figure begins initially with a wire armature that supports every aspect of it, toothpicks and the feathers. There has to be a support in every part of it. I then build clay onto the armature, and the clay I use is plastiline, oil-based clay, so it doesn't dry out. I can get much better detail with it. As I begin a piece, it's very important for me to get my ego out of the way and let whatever this energy is flow through me so that the piece literally feels as if it creates itself. And again, trying to bring them to life is the goal, is the challenge, and ultimately the pieces feel like they literally create themselves. And then once the clay is finished, and that might take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to 2 to 3 months, depending on the size and the complexity of the piece, it then goes to my foundry. Especially the way I work, I pose a piece like this, very challenging to cast. There's a lot of delicate, intricate parts. It's a very complex form. So in order to ensure the quality, I absolutely need to be involved. So overseeing, supervising, as well as hands-on work as myself at the foundry. So I work on each one in the edition. That's very, very important to me. And ultimately, the quality of the work reflects the fact that I'm using a very wonderful foundry, but also I'm involved all the way through. I'm going to give a brief account of the process that occurs here. Lost wax is the method of bronze casting. The basic idea of lost wax bronze casting goes all the way back to China, 3000 BC. So this is a simplified account, but will be easy to remember at least. Positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. So the first positive is the clay that I've created. The first negative, which is done here, is the rubber mold, which is made from the clay, and we will show that in a little more detail.
Judd finishes his original clay at his studio and then brings it to us to make a rubber mold. This is a rubber mold of the deer slayer. The rubber is flexible, and in order to keep it rigid, we make this plastic exterior shell to make sure that the shape holds its correct original shape. Sometimes in order to make a proper mold, we need to cut parts of the original clay off and make separate pieces. You can see here that this is the deer head from the deer slayer. Into these rubber molds, we will cast the waxes. You can see the red on the exterior of the mold. And this is how we'll do the next process for wax casting.
The rubber mold is the one part that's reusable, so that allows me to make the addition, a certain number of castings I decide to make of each sculpture. From the rubber mold, that first negative is created intermediate positive, which is in wax. At that point, I work on the wax, make sure it's just the way I want it. Once I approve it, we take the waxes, dip them in 2 different ingredients. The principle is a little like making fried chicken, but instead of batter and breadcrumbs, it goes into slurry and silica, 8 times in each. That is then fired to 1800 degrees. At that point, 2 things happen. The coating turns into the second negative, which is unrefined china or a ceramic shell. The wax is lost out from heat, thus the name lost wax. And in that cavity where the wax used to be in the ceramic mold is where the molten bronze is poured at about 2100 degrees, filling the space formerly occupied by the wax. Once that cools, we then chip away the ceramic to get the final bronze. So positive clay, negative rubber, positive wax, negative ceramic, positive bronze. For each one in the addition, we go back to the rubber mold, the one part that's reusable, make a new wax, make a new ceramic to get the next bronze. And that's the basic idea of the lost wax method of bronze casting. It takes about 3 months to do all of that. One step which I didn't include in the simplified outline of the casting process is after that bronze is poured into the ceramic mold, we chip away the ceramic, but at the final step in that process we have to sandblast the ceramic to get the ceramic off of the bronze. All right, so what we're about to do now is weld the bow into the hand, and then eventually we'll put a bowstring out of copper wire onto the bow. So I'm going to help place the bow in the position. Josh is then going to weld it.
Welding.
What Josh is doing now is the beginning of the process of creating the patina of the bronze. So it's about a couple steps. It's using chemicals and heat from propane torches. So this is, first coat is a light liver, which basically is a chemical that seeps into the cracks and crevices and keeps them kind of dark in the cracks and crevices. So the ultimate patina ends up with a nice contrast between the smoother areas and the places where there's more detail. And then eventually, he'll use a torch on this, and then eventually we'll use ferric iron compounds to give it the effect I want. Is kind of an old leather, kind of an uneven reddish brown patina. And then the final thing we do is we wax it to protect the patina. And on this piece, because it's a winter scene, we'll use a white wax on the base to give a snow effect. So this is one of the last steps in the whole process. And then once the patina is completed and we wax, then we mount it on a wooden base, which has already been drilled out to hold the piece. Felt the bottom, and that's all done. It really starts to come to life for me. When it's that shiny brass effect of the bronze initially, it doesn't appeal to me. Once the color starts coming on, then it really starts to look how I envisioned it from the beginning. I love this part of the process, yeah. Think back of when I first began the piece with the armature and then the clay and then all the steps that have come about since then. Yeah, it's pretty satisfying to see it at this point. We've finished the patina. We've got two different kinds of wax on it, which is beeswax, the first coat, and then a paste wax after that. It still has to be buffed out, and before I do that, I'm going to use some white wax, wax to which probably titanium oxide has been impregnated to create an effect of snow down at the base, because this is a winter scene. So we're going to dab this on. And then finally, after all the steps here at the foundry, and there are many, to get to this finished state, something that will last a long time. I love this medium. And the fact that it will be so long lasting, also the fact that I can create sculptures like this, which would be impossible if I was working in wood or stone or marble. I wouldn't even entertain an idea like this. So all of these delicate, intricate things, the braids swinging, the delicacy of the bowstring, all are really possible only in this medium. So it's, yeah, it's a good feeling. Most people are surprised when I tell them that I never took a class, I never went to art school. I think of this as a gift, something that's not really teachable, something I didn't learn, something I was given as a gift. It was important that I didn't squander the gift and to make use of it. And absolutely, I have no doubt that depicting Northeastern Indians in this series is what I was put here to do.